Hello and welcome to another episode of Member Feature. Today we're going to look at another member among the initial batch of UR in the game. She is one of the more underwhelming cards among initial URs, and that member is Sakura Hanayo. Before I start, note that in every one of my Member Feature videos, member stats are taken at max level, max limit break, and max skill level. Okay, let's get into it. First and foremost, we look at her basic stats. She has close to 8k appeal and stamina. Technique is her highest stat among the three, over 10k technique. High technique also means high crit rate. As you can see, she has 46.2% crit rate, but her skill set is what defines her role in the game. She is a shielder and she has a passive that increases stamina of all members. Her active activates at the start of the life. It grants 10% of her appeal to the SP gauge. Well, that came out of nowhere. I don't find any game-changing effects from this active, so let's just move on. She's a member who is more unspecialized. As a shielder, stamina plays a huge role because her shielding power is based on her stamina. While stamina is not her highest stat, technique is. To give you an idea of how low her stamina is, typical stamina protectors have around 10k stamina, while she is stuck at 8k stamina. In other words, her shielding power is lower than most stamina protectors in the game. But what about her offensive power? Her appeal is not noteworthy, but what about her technique, her high crit rate? With a crit rate that high, she may be similar to carry healers, Wedding Ellie and Wonderland Yo. Well, let's try and make a comparison between the two. First, Wedding Ellie and Wonderland Yo has way lower stamina than Hanayo. Their healing power is just pathetic, while Hanayo's stamina is much more tolerable in comparison. But in terms of offensive power, Hanayo loses completely to Ellie and Yo. They have 9,282 appeal, while Hanayo's appeal doesn't even reach 8,000. Hanayo also loses to Ellie and Yo's technique by 1,300, and so does crit rate. In short, Hanayo has worse offensive power but better defensive power than Ellie and Yo. I like to call Sakura Hanayo the light version of Wedding Ellie and Wonderland Yo because her offensive and defensive power are not completely pushed to the opposite points of the extremes like Ellie and Yo, but she retains some of her shooting power in exchange for less offensive power. Having more stamina is good for early to mid game because stamina is a huge issue. You don't want to sacrifice too much of your stamina at this stage, but you can easily lose out to Ellie and Yo once the player reaches late game when players no longer worry about stamina. In other words, the longer you play, the less effective she is. Being a light version really means losing out some part of its good features. Her low appeal is another huge flaw. If you compare her with other stamina protectors in the game, you will notice that she isn't that impressive. 7,956 appeal is very low. Even the first stamina protector that was released in the game after the initial batch of UR, Twilight Demon Yoshiko, has higher appeal than Hanayo, and her stamina is in the normal 10k range. So does that mean Hanayo is completely useless? Also not. Technique is her strongest stat, and that means she gets a 15% bonus to crit rate. Compared to Yoshiko, Hanayo has double the crit rate. She will perform critical notes twice as often as Yoshiko. And that's a decent boost to her offensive power. But by how much you ask? Not much, but it's a considerable amount. If I were to roughly translate the amount given by her crit rate bonus into appeal, she would roughly have 8,550 appeal. This means any stamina protector with appeal higher than 8,550 will outperform her offensively. This means Twilight Demon Yoshiko is weaker than Hanayo offensively. Those who come close to 8,550 appeal, like China Maid Rin and even the fast limited UR, Angel Nico, both having 8,400 appeal, have slightly lower offensive power than Hanayo. But any member with higher appeal than 8,550 will have better offensive power than Hanayo. For example, Red Riding Hood Emma with 8,815 appeal and Princess Ai with 8,918 appeal. In fact, these two members have stamina around the normal 10k range. They don't suffer from stamina issues like Hanayo. 8,550 appeal is just an estimate. I find it effective when you compare her offensive power with typical stamina protectors who have 10k or more stamina. This doesn't apply to those whose stamina is not their highest stat among the three, like Wedding Ellie, Wonderland Yo, and Princess Mari. In case if you don't know Princess Mari, she is the current strongest healer in the game. Generally, Hanayo loses to a few other members in the game offensively, but what about we take attribute into account? None of the members I mentioned so far other than Hanayo are active attribute. Among active attribute members so far, there is one member who can contest Hanayo. In fact, she is also a UR among the initial batch, who is the shield heroine Circus Ruby. We all know that she has insane stamina and shielding power. Ruby's offensive power is a little bit interesting. Despite being a shielder, she doesn't have the normal skill set of one. Her passive and active mimics that of an offensive scorer. Her passive increases appeal of string strategy, while her active increases appeal of all members by 5%. As a skill type, her 5% voltage demerit does drag her back a bit, but her passive increases appeal by 7% while the demerit only decreases by 5%. Her demerit is compensated by her passive. So if we compare her to Hanayo, Hanayo has high crit rate while Ruby has good skill set. Whether which one is better than the other offensively comes down to whether Ruby's active activates or not. If it activates, Ruby wins. If not, Hanayo wins. On average, Ruby doesn't lose much offensive power to Hanayo. In fact, the higher the appeal of the scorer you pair up with Ruby, the better the bonus given by Ruby's passive. Considering that Ruby has way better stamina than Hanayo, Ruby is an overall better choice. Who would have thought that Ruby, who has been admiring Hanayo since she was a child, would surpass her so quickly? It really sucks for Hanayo to be the slightly inferior choice, but not every card in the game can be extraordinary for the sake of balance. Here's the summary of this video. Sakura Hanayo is the light version of Wedding Ellie and Wonderland Yo. She is somewhat useful in early to mid game, but her effectiveness drops the longer you play the game as she can be easily overtaken by Ellie and Yo at being offensive carry, or better yet, Princess Mari. She performs better than most other healers and shielders offensively, except those with more than 8550 appeal. Circus Ruby is generally a better choice than Sakura Hanayo. Regardless, she is still strong offensively among healers and shielders. That's all for this video. If this video helps, do like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and stay tuned for more All Stars content.